Thanks a lot for welcoming me. Good morning from my side. Yes, as said, Christoph Runde, and also quite warm thank you to Thomas, who already gave a little bit of introduction to this topic when he just in his presentation he referred to already an ISO standard about information security they are using, and so you already got a slight idea maybe of what I will be talking about. Just two very small and quick slides about where I'm coming from. We are a network competence center in southwestern Germany, Stuttgart located, so in the heart of the automotive industry, which is the reason why we are there, because we've been founded already 21 years ago as a competence network for extended reality. So we got a lot of research inside, technology providers, hardware, software, but also the end users, the manufacturers like Mercedes-Benz or Festo or Trumpf that are in. And we are doing this networking between all these stakeholders in this XR community. There you got a slide about what our value chain is about, the industries, the IT, hardware, software, R&D, and some multipliers, public bodies, and so on that are spreading the happy message about opportunities of XR into the public. So I will be talking about standards and our activities in this field related, of course, to extended reality. Why standards? Of course, they save an awful lot of money using them, manufacturing information, transaction, shipping, distribution, change costs, and so on. They simplify work and they enable you to concentrate when you're developing new solutions really on what's innovative in your solutions, and they bring you to the point not to reinvent the wheel, but to use what's already on the table, what has been proved already in the past. And so to focus your money and your efforts on innovative aspects. It's, of course, also to increase interoperability and exchangeability, and thus standards also intensify competition, which is, of course, not maybe what the manufacturer likes, but as a customer, of course, that's something, of course, you would prefer, definitely. And, of course, so therefore said, thanks to Thomas already, standards, we are confronted to standards in our everyday life always. Just here, short example, when using a smartphone for browsing, of course, you need the mobile network services, wireless area networks, internet services, applications, user terminals, and so on. And what's already shortly illustrated in the slide here, it's, of course, there's lots of organizations working on different aspects of this entire system working on. What's absolutely crucial is, of course, that if this all shall work together, it's absolutely necessary that the interfaces are very well defined between these counterparts. Otherwise, it will be ending in a mess, of course. What's also, I think, crucial to see at this point is to differentiate between the different standardization organizations. And some of them are part of the official state-recognized formal standardization systems, the so-called recognized SDOs, so Standard Development Organizations, which are, for example, you all know them, ISO, ITU for telecommunications, the International Electrotechnical Commission. And in some regions of the world, we have a layer in between. In Europe, it's CEN, it's ETSI for telecommunications, CENELEC. They are also in the Pacific, so in Africa, they have this layer. And then you have the national organizations like the ANSI in the US, or the DIN in Germany, and so on, the UNI in Italy. But besides that, there's a lot of associations, of initiatives, much of them industry-driven, company-driven, like Kronos Group, for example, or the Metaverse Standards Forum, also IEEE, IETF. They are not recognized, but because they are not so very much formal than those ones on the left-hand side, they tend to be much faster in publishing stuff and bringing things really to the market. But the organizations on the left-hand side, so the officially recognized SDOs, they have a higher probability to get their standards be recognized, for example, by laws. So being mirrored in the legal system, saying, oh, well, you have to have this product defined, like we just saw, according to ISO, according to IEC, and so on. So that's the difference between it. And this is just a short view on the international organizations. So the international ones, this is this layer here, regional ones and the national ones. And sometimes because I mean, general standardization items and electronic information and so on, there's a huge overlap, of course. And then, of course, they decided decades ago, okay, we need to create some joint technical committees, JTC1 on information technology, and a subcommittee 24, which is then on computer graphics and XR. And of course, so this was just very short overview about the international standardization systems. The question is, anything about XR on this topic? Yes, absolutely, definitely. We got the introduction in the presentation before. And this is, of course, and definitely also valid for extended reality. If you want to see the future, you set the standards for it. And that's definitely also correct for extended reality, for metaverse, and so on. And the approaches of the different nation, countries, regions are different. We can see on the next slide, we had an analysis of different standardization strategies. So nations and also regions, like the European Union, they formulate and publish standardization strategies, and they are also slightly different, let's say so. If we have a look into the German strategy, well, it's very, from my impression, cooperative. Well, let's improve the world, let's do something together, and let's work together on standards and agree on some common stuff. So it's quite, kind, maybe a bit naive, if you want. So the US one, it's much more driven by what they want to get out of it, saying, for example, strengthen international outreach to promote understanding, then also work to prevent standards and application from becoming technical trade barriers to the US products and services. So very much oriented towards exporting and make their products compatible to the world market and to prevent anything from being against that. And of course, what's definitely interesting to have a look into the Chinese standardization strategy. And they said it contains a 15-year plan to shape the future, to set the global standards for the next generation of technology. Well, that's an ambition. So they want to set the standards. And how they're doing it, they're putting really lots of money in it, into the standardization system, and enabling their experts to get into the organizations, into the committees, discuss and prepare the documents and so on. So they're really putting money on it. And they're starting to be successful in this. And it's really a very long-term strategy. And they even mention in their standardization strategy virtual reality technology. So that's absolutely something they have in mind. And just as we saw in the slide before, metaverse is definitely a topic where they want to take the lead. And yeah, I said they're putting lots of money in it, and you see there's also a difference between the financing. In Europe, it's half government, half industry. In China, it's nearly purely government, and in the US, it's very much industry financed. And well, if the government then says, okay, we have this strategy of defining in 15 years the new technologies, they put the money in it, and they would simply do it. So as VDC, so we got involved into the standardization systems. We became member of the Metaverse Standards Forum, Kronos, IEEE, the Simulation Interoperability Standards Organization, so that's NATO and defense and so on. And in the German National Institute, the DIN, which is member of ISO, and so we can also talk with ISO, and we also have a direct link, a liaison with ISO. And we made a research, so we found over 600 standards, specifications, recommendations, guidelines, and so on, related to extended reality. More than 100 that are created right now when we're sitting here, and more than 75 active initiatives, groups that are working on different documents. When talking about what are they dealing with, what are the topics, it's about formats, coding, so 208, it's about graphics software, algorithms, evaluation, VR in general, graphics hardware, AR in general, contents, ergonomics, basics and terms, communication, interoperability, mobile, and so on. And of course, we did a clustering, and then we saw, okay, well, that's maybe 7 topics where you can group them in. They are talking about the fundamentals, about XR management, how to govern, and so on, about UX ergonomics, human factors, about coding, mapping, interoperability, communication, graphics, software, CGI, all the hardware topics, about the displays, haptics, audio, and so on, and about applications, so human models, contents, education, design, health, assistance, collaboration, marketing, and so on. So that's what the actual scene is about, what the actual documents are about. And just to give you an idea of what I'm talking in concrete matters and discrete matters, here are just some examples of these 600 plus documents that are out there. For example, from ISO, information model for mixed augmented reality contents, also from ISO, object environment representation for image-based rendering in virtual mixed augmented reality, methods of measuring diffraction efficiency and associated optical characteristics of holograms. So that's really on hardware, on displays, and so on. Or International Telecommunications Union, talking about influencing factors on quality of experience for virtual reality service, or user experience is a topic. The NATO is working on guidelines or they published guidelines for mitigation cyber sickness in VR, so also NATO is a player in this field. 3GPP is talking about XR in 5G, of course, that's interesting, about future mobile networks. The European Telecommunication System about the augmented reality framework, IEEE on ethics, diversity, inclusion, accessibility. There are standards for distributed interactive simulations. They are out there. I mean, we're talking about distributed simulations since decades, and now I think all what's already there can also be applied or might be applied to our metaverse ideas. Collada is, of course, a de facto standard. There are standards, definitions, characteristics for VR video images. The Consumer Technology Association about best practice for limited accessibility, and so on. And so what's becoming clear, it's really dozens of organizations that are publishing, and what they're publishing, it's not always, let's say, they're defining the same terms and so on. Sometimes it's double defined, or they're defining this way, the other organization is defining that way. And the numbers are also different. So the most is coming from ISO and this joint technical committee of ISO and IEC, and also IEC, IEEE, DIN, Open Geospatial Consortium. This is the German Engineering Association, and so on. And we had an analysis at VDC about what SDOs are working on which topics. And of course, it's also some are more focused on this item, some are on this item. When we had a look at, for example, hardware topics, optics, haptics, acoustics, and so on, that's a lot of the International Electrotechnical Commission, of course. Also the telecoms are in here. And in all, it's just 9 organizations that we found there. It's other way, if we look at UX, ergonomics, human factors, it's more than 20 organizations publishing, giving recommendations, and so on, always from their perspective they're talking about. The most also coming from ISO, IEC, then IEEE, ETSI, 3GPP, and so on. And then we try to characterize a little bit the organizations, and so for you can get a very quick view on what are the focuses of their daily work. And of course, we see like IEEE, they are very much focused on management, fundamentals, applications. IEC, of course, is very much in hardware topics. NATO, of course, is in applications, of course, defense applications, and so on. So we have this overview for all the organizations, so you can have a very quick view on it and have immediately an idea of what their focus areas are. But you also have to take into account the numbers are different here. Here we have the outer circle at 200, and here it's 30 or just 20, so the numbers are varying also. Then we had a look onto all these organizations, so the big ones like ISO, IEEE, and so on. Of course, they got a lot of working committees and specialized groups in different topics that we see here. And I have brought to you now 3 examples here. So this is the joint technical committee between ISO IC, and they have a subcommittee 24 on computer graphics and VR. And they're also working on image processing, interchange, environmental representation, mixed augmented reality continuum, concepts, reference model, visualization of information for systems integration, health, safety, ICT integration systems, VR, AR-based, and so on and so on. And you will find also in subcommittee 29, coding for audio, picture, multimedia, hypermedia information. So this is where MPEG, for example, is in. The IEEE Standards Association, they also now have a Metaverse Standards Committee, of course. They are working on human factors for immersive content, 3D body processing, interfacing cyber, physical world, also very relevant for Metaverse when we're talking about digital twinning and so on. And the rest you can see here. I mean, you're quite quicker in reading than me and spelling all what's written here. But you see, okay, we made this mapping. This is World Wide Web Consortium, and to see what the organizations are working on. Immersive captions here. They also have a Metaverse interoperability community group, AR community group, VR website, Metaverse community group, and so on here. So all of them are quite very active, and there's a lot of activity that's happening outside. That's what we found out when we made this research on it. The question is, of course, okay, what did we do with all this information? So we put everything into a huge database. It's a common literature database. Maybe some of you know it, Zotero. And we put in, on the one hand side, all the references to the documents that are active out there. Of course, not the documents themselves. They are copyright protection, and you have to purchase them and so on. Or you can maybe access them through your universities. Usually the universities, they have free access to the standardization system. And so we put everything into this literature database, and so you can do a free text search. You can also look for certain code words. So we did a tagging, and this, for example, if we look for communication interoperability and 5G, then okay, there are some standards out, at least these 4 ones that are dealing with interoperability and 5G related to extended reality. So that's easy now to find. And secondly, we put all the initiatives into this database. So the focus groups, and so the question, for example, who's working actually on mobile XR, and then, okay, we get an output. For example, these groups are working on it. The World Wide Web Consortium, Simulation Interoperability Standards Organization, Web 3D Consortium, and so on and so on. They have different working groups that are all interested in mobile XR. And if someone of you is working in this field, so it's I think, relatively easy to find out the context and to get in touch with them. What's also interesting, of course, I can recommend to you to have a look onto the standardization roadmaps. A lot of organizations and SDOs, they publish what they have in mind, what's their work program, what they are intending to do in the next years. And this is the one from MPEG, for example. And of course, this is highly relevant to us because they're talking about immersive video, they're talking about haptics, they're talking about immersive multi-user interactivity. So extended reality streaming and so on is absolutely topic to MPEG, and they're working on this. And if any one of you is working on mobile extended reality applications, it's absolutely worthwhile to have a look on what they are doing. If someone is working on smart city applications of public participation processes with extended reality, on XR for construction applications and so on. Of course, it's interesting to have a look on what the Open Geospatial Consortium is working on. And they have a quite sophisticated roadmap with all the ideas and the activities they're intending to address in the next years. What's also interesting, also recommendation from my side to you, is have a look on what policymakers, consultants are publishing on standardization requirements, because we can expect that this will get into the standardization system within the next years. And this is from a really rough landscape made by the European Commission from July 2023. So it's quite new what we have here, where they mapped, yes, in a rough manner, virtual world requirements. They have this initiative on virtual worlds and metaverse and XR and so on now out. And they try to find out what standardization initiative is addressing what need actually. And as a short overview, I think the standards monitor that we develop now, it's getting much more into detail. And yeah, but that's of course something that's interesting, because it gives a view of the public side and of the government side on what they have in mind and what they are just seeing right now. So I think I could give you a little bit of overview about what standards do have to do with extended reality, what's already there, what we worked out at the VDC in the recent years. I have to say we are going to publish the standards monitor to the end of this year. It's already partly published. All the organizations are already on our website where you can have a look through. And the reason, of course, I made the conclusion here why we did it. Because it's quite, I think, a heavy work to give this overview, because XR standardization is so much scattered, because it's simply a cross-cutting technology that's touching so many different fields. And what I see when I look into my VDC network, to my companies there, and also research institutes, they're not really aware of what's already on the table. And that's, of course, it's a pity, because you can profit so much from standardization with all the advantages I told to you in the beginning of my presentation. State support could be an idea also for us to make some kind of office that really informs about standardization, because the economy will profit a lot from this. What I want to tell you is, of course, there's a lot of XR standards out there, and they provide really an excellent basis to build on, to avoid, to reinvent the wheel, and to really concentrate on the innovative aspects of your product. So standards are already there. So my plea for you is really use them to develop your products for today, to develop your future markets. And I would like to conclude my talk with one saying from Ono Taichi, the inventor, from Kanban, just in time, the Toyota production system. And he said, without standards, there can be no improvement. Nothing left to say. Thank you very much for your attention.